over here. So this is actually the only building that we know on site that was built by Japanese Americans. Because Japanese Americans were actually recruited out of the assembly center to help build up the camp. Because we had contractors out here who were supposed to build it up, but then they ended up getting these mass contracts out in the Pacific with the military that they were like, deuces, I'm going to go make more money over there. And then so they're hiring local folks to then build out like all the barracks and stuff. And it's documented that local folks who are hired, they only spent less than 1 hour, less than 60 minutes, because they're going for 59 minutes to build one of those barracks. So now you know the quality, there was no quality control, it wasn't like that great or anything like that. And then eventually, there wasn't enough people as people are going to war to then get the labor to help finish building the camps. So that's where the government then went into the assembly centers, like at Puyallup and Portland Expo Center, to be like, hey, do you want to help build up the camps? And so some of the families, to get out of those rough conditions of the assembly center, you know, living, not trying to live in horse stalls and whatnot, they would then volunteer their family to come build up the sites. So we do know some of the barracks out here across the landscape of Idaho were built by Japanese Americans, but we are not able to say that one was built by Japanese Americans. But we know for a fact that this building here was built by Japanese Americans, by Issei and Nisei. So this root cellar is kind of a little bit subterranean, but kind of above. And so they were utilizing, the Japanese Americans were utilizing some designs of Japanese storage, but then, you know, with the modified stuff from what they were learning as the farmers on the West Coast. So they helped build this. So this was 200 feet long, I believe like 40 feet wide or so. And what you're seeing on the inside is where the trucks would drive through. So that's why it's big and cavernous, because the trucks, after they're, you know, pulling all the produce from the fields, they bring it here to store it. And then so it's on the sides where they would have bins where, you know, the produce would be. So they, you know, they had carrots and onions, potatoes and whatnot. And so this was actually one of the most sought after jobs, because the way it was designed, it kept the cool like 68, 69 degrees. So everyone wanted this job. So it was always highly sought after to work in the root cellar. And so, but later on, you can kind of see that, you know, it's leaning. The Park Service just recently got funding to kind of rehabilitate this to get it more structurally stable. Because before, about like 10 years ago, we used to actually walk through halfway into the root cellar, but now it's not as stable. So when I was in the Park Service, we would wear a hard hat if we were to go in. But you can kind of see that there's a middle area that's kind of missing its top. You know, the sun is coming through. So I heard from some of the local farm kids out here that when they're younger in the 70s, they would just drive their cars, like use this as a ramp. And then, so I think the top part kind of took some beating. But yeah, so it's interesting to see how some of these components of the camp are like positive memories for other local folks, because, you know, it's kind of reused and repurposed. Because I think I did mention that those 644 buildings, they all got moved out, but some people made homes out of these buildings. Like, so when you go drive across Idaho, we know that there's buildings that went as far as Arco, Idaho, which is about like 3 hours drive north of us. But here in Twin Falls, you could see homes that were built out of portions of barracks, whether they're half barracks or quarter barracks that were like put together to form an L shape, or a third of a barrack, 2/3 making a T shape. So all these buildings are dotting across the landscape. Some are used as barns, some are used as buildings, because if you go back into Twin Falls off of Blue Lakes, right across the street from Big Five, I'm pretty sure that's a mess hall, because the shape is over there, but it's a they like bricked it on the outside, so it looks a little bit larger, and it's a yellow building that has like, I think it's like a vape shop and like a gaming place where you could like buy board games. But, you know, a lot of these buildings were reused in the community, so people have, you know, different memories associated with them, right? Where our community was kind of a source of oppression, while others are finding different use in these buildings. So there are these dualities of the life cycles of these buildings and this site itself. Like, hopefully, as you guys are coming out here, it's more of a healing process rather than, you know, a re-traumatization process. So yeah. But as I mentioned earlier, Minidoka is meant to overproduce, to send produce to the other camps, to make the camps all self-sustaining. And so this is why we had one of the root cellars. The other root cellar that is in existence today is over at Heart Mountain. It's actually a larger root cellar. It's the size of a football field, and because they had more land for agricultural produce. So, and then when this is at full capacity, if they're to take all the produce out, it could fill up to 50 train car loads to send out. So yeah. Let's see, what other stuff should we talk about? I don't know. Do you have any questions? No? Okay. Well, we're kind of ahead of schedule.